Unlock the full potential with your business with Leadershipity. Our proven strategies have fueled growth for countless organizations. Ready to elevate your leadership and scale your success? Book your free 15-minute consultation now. Click the link in the show notes below and let's make your business soar. Hello, welcome to the Learn Sign Away Show. I am your host, Trent Clark, and super pumped up today about my special guest, Mike Dempsey. Mike, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Friday morning, got over my Super Bowl hangover from Las Vegas, so I'm fine now.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and we are coming off a massive week in sport, obviously the Super Bowl. As you know, I am a longtime serial entrepreneur, written a recent book called Leading Winning Teams, which will be coming out in August. I'm super excited about that. Most people know me more probably from my coaching and professional baseball, 13 years and 3 World Series. So I am always pumped up to talk leadership, to talk teams. And man, Mike has got a great story about his background. He is very philanthropic. This guy has done tons of work for charity. He's a Wall Street guy. He's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He's an NFL alumni expert. And man, and of course, what's interesting is, and I never thought about this, Mike, but like, man, you pivoted from sport into being into risk management, which, by the way, sport's all about risk management, right? We are constantly weighing our options and figuring it out. And of course, it's natural when you're being coached into it. Like, hey, is this a good risk? Like you're calculating and, I'm always coaching our youth kids, right? And I'm like telling our quarterback, hey, listen, you throw the ball where our guy can catch it or no one can catch it, right? Because this is our risk management. Like you can't float it over the middle. There's things that just go badly, right? So tell the audience a little bit about how you, man, as this NFL guy, and we're going to talk a little bit about your story about how you climbed to that, but like how all of a sudden you made this very quick pivot from, hey, I knew this world to this world of business and risk management.
It was actually dumb luck, I got to admit. I'd like to say it was all calculated, but, here it was in Tampa Bay. It was released in October of 96, and now I'm looking for, what am I going to do next? I'm 25 years old. I don't know what's ahead for me, and I tried professional wrestling at this place called the Power Plant in Atlanta with WCW. It lasted about 4 days until I got dropped on my head, one of my many, many concussions. And I almost got paralyzed. So I came back home to Tampa and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And there was a firm called Solomon Brothers that had relocated from Wall Street, moved a lot of their operations and finance and everything else, back office down to Tampa, Florida from New York. So it was kind of split operation. And I just luckily ended up, because I had the New York accent, it worked out pretty well that they took a flyer on a guy that had no knowledge of Wall Street. And I kind of fell into it. But as he said, risk management, I think my whole life has been a little bit about risk management, taking calculated risks. And, I'm also a terrorism survivor. I was in 9/11 in the World Trade Center. So that's a little bit of risk management there. And when you're going through a scenario like that, when the building was hit and how you get out of the building. And it's kind of funny, right? In a way, on a tragic situation where it's a personal situation of safety. When you try to get out of the building, you don't know what happened. Something hit the building. You don't know if it was a bomb or a plane. We didn't have TVs in the World Trade Center. I was working on the top floor of 5 World Trade Center, which was connected to 1. This was obviously 9/11, and got out. I was looking for my wife, trying to get a hold of her. She worked on the 100th floor of Tower 1, Marsh McLennan. She was late to work, but we didn't have a cell phone things going like we did today, So remember, I got into the building, into Tower 1. Instead of going out on BC Street, which was the easiest exit out of 5 World Trade Center, I went right back into the lobby of 1 World Trade Center to try to find her. I remember asking the security guy, can I go up the elevator? Well, the elevator glass was all blown out. It was about 9:00 in the morning at that point where the firefighters had first arrived. And something was going on. There was smoke. Again, I didn't know what plane hit the building, did not know exactly what the issue was. So I try to think strategically, well, let me get out and try to get my phone. Had no signal. We know why. But so I go out by the other side of the World Trade Center complex it was a record store called Sam Goody for the people that knew records back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's damn goody.
Yeah, they had a cool commercial order and went out by that. That was on Liberty and Greenwich Street. So that was Two World Trade Center. I remember I got out the building. It must have been right at 9:03 a.m. As we know, 9:03 a.m., the second plane. As I got out, it's like when you're in a dream and you're frozen and you can't move and you're paralyzed. As that second plane was barreling into Two World Trade Center, went right over the Bankers Trust building, which is 130 Liberty Street, at a very low trajectory. The first plane was a little higher. The second one came in really low. And I just remember seeing it, paralyzed by fear about what the heck was going on. You heard the noise and you can see it. I could actually see the last image I remember is being able to like see the plane, like almost not, can't say I see the cockpit, but really up close. And people were running the other direction and I was trampled, but I was pushed face forward into the concrete. And I don't remember anything until I was woken up in City Hall Park about 9:32, which was like,
Wow.
so 29 minutes later, I was semi-conscious by a guy named Jerry Warner down at Two World Trade Center. In City Hall Park. And I was taken to NYU downtown Beekman Hospital. But I have no memory of that whole, like a blackout. It's like going out drinking and waking up the next day. That was kind of my story. So
this is crazy. So you're both you and your spouse at the time, pretty young couple. You're now, about 30 when this whole thing happens, because you're about 5 years removed from the NFL. Are you still with Solomon Brothers at that point?
Credit Suisse First Boston.
Credit Suisse Boston. So, I think there's a couple of things that happen here, right? Well, first of all, one is Solomon Brothers see, New York firm. They see like, hey, here's this young New York guy, NFL. He's been trained. He's been coached. Like, we're going to put him into our program and we're going to train him and coach him. Like and he knows how to get that. Like, so that's always incredible to me that some of these firms really recognize that ability and take you in under their wing with, like you said, not a lot. What is your degree? You graduated from Albany. Is that right?
Well, I had a sociology degree. So let's just say that when I bounced around and, the story in college football was remarkable too, because I had taken a walk-on opportunity at Boston University. Yeah. Being 18 at the time, the Coach Ford said, hey, I'm going to give you this walk-on opportunity and you should be, I thought it was a guarantee for a scholarship, right? So I thought I was good. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Actually, Chris Palmer was the Boston University head coach. He actually coached in the NFL, Cleveland Browns. And so I thought at 18, great academic school, BU.
Yep.
Academic football, and they sell you, right? And a walk-on opportunity. I remember University of Florida had the same thing. They were more realistic about my odds of making the University of Florida Gators, which was, it was kind of like a 10-1, whatever. So Boston, it felt like it was 1-1, right? I was taking a very good calculated risk. Unfortunately, rolled over my ankle in camp. They also put me at defensive tackle, and I was undersized. I was 226 pounds soaking wet. I was should have been playing linebacker, but they felt, he could play D tackle, and whatever coach decided that. And I was not having a good camp anyway, but when I rolled over my ankle and I couldn't compete the next 2 days, I was cut. And then that will cost me, my parents, not me, because I was 18. It cost us about $12,000. And I had to finish the semester and transfer back home to New York City to a city university, which was like $1,000 whatever dollars, which really just had a baseball team, which I played baseball, but no football team. My parents made me pay back that $12,000. I had to work more summer, open battery tunnel, taking tolls. Not a great job when you're a young man, with interest too. My mom made me pay interest on the money too, which is great. So I think,
wow, you're gonna get that money lesson right there, bro. That is how money works, right?
Yeah, she made me pay back every bit of it. So I didn't have the summers that most kids had in college. So I had to pay off.
Yeah,
working 7 to 3 shifts at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel with the fumes. Not exactly the ideal, but it's about accountability. I took a gamble on something and it didn't pay off. And then really for me, the payoff was that I was in Baruch and I played baseball. I hadn't played in 4 years. I missed a little high school playing baseball because I could only play football. My coach would not allow us to play baseball. which I think is awful. I think kids should play multiple sports, right?
Yeah, right. I agree.
But I got to play. So I actually made the baseball team after 4, and that's incredible in itself. You think about it, you coach baseball.
Oh, yeah.
But to miss all that time in those years from like 13 to 17 and not play ball and then make the team at 18 in college, I think I would have had a better career looking back at baseball, but I had to choose one sport at that point. So I was played baseball at Burke in my freshman year, but then I transferred to Albany. Albany was a Division III school, but the defensive coordinator, he was a graduate of my high school. So I had an opportunity to come in right away. I knew I was going to play, and I didn't want to sit the bench. I knew that at Boston, I was like 5 deep, and I said there was no way I was going to ever get any playing time through probably that 3-4 years I was going to play at BU. So I came into D3 school, got the opportunity, middle linebacker, had a great career there. And then by luck, or whatever you want to call it, I transferred credits a number of times, right? You go from 3 schools in 1 year, you lose credits. Like not all this credits, although Baruch was a great business school, well, all those credits did not transfer over to Albany for whatever reasons. All these standards were a little different than Baruch, and I lose credits. I'm trying to graduate on time, did not graduate on time. I'm up there summer 93 up in Albany. Very few people up there in Albany. Firebirds, a real football team there at our facility practicing, right? And that's where they did some of their practices, and they were 2 guys down for the season. That was the only person there on campus that had the football pedigree to step into. They needed a body. I was the body, right? It's like a body double. That was the guy. So I had no plans on graduation, and within a week, I was a professional football player. So it worked out. It was like timing. It took everything's a risk management. You kind of calculate the risks. Well, I had no other so I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was making something. And 3 weeks later, had my first devastating injury. It was actually the week before I would have had some real playing time in a professional football game. I tore my ACL meniscus, 2 pops. It wasn't just 1 pop, it was 2 pops, non-contact. My cleat got stuck in turf, which always happens, as you know, back in that. And
that's old turf was terrible.
But everything was over. So I was pretty much down and out until got the opportunity 2 years later. I think got the Gabra graft, the ACL, and that was it was supposed to be a quicker recovery, but it took longer. The stability of obviously was a little impacted, so I couldn't really cut and couldn't really run a feel like. So it was around the spring of 95 where I got the opportunity of Buccaneers from getting Lee Steinberg, who made a phone call for me. And the rest was history. So that year I was physically unable to perform because I couldn't pass a physical. Wasn't really ready yet, but 96 got on practice squad and I was cut after October. In the middle of October, and I thought, oh my God, everything is over. What do I do next? That's how I ended up with Solomon Brothers. That was the preamble to, but like you said, pivoting. You got to pivot. And Brooklyn, growing up in Brooklyn in probably a poor, underprivileged environment like I did, you got to learn how to feed, and so it was the survival skills that you learn growing up that kind of took me through all this transition when I was a young man in my 20s. And I would say all the risk management stuff that I do now in my corporate career was really, life is all about risk management, calculated risks. And you got to assess what your risk appetite is, right? You got to know what your risk appetite is. And I'm at a stage now where I'm, now in my 52 going on 53, and, I'm not about wealth accumulation. I'm not going to buy a business. I'm not going to do this and that. I'm more about wealth preservation, right? So we always got to think risk management in our personal lives. And that's how I've always lived my life, So I've had a pretty exciting life, but I've always managed my risk as best I can. So.
Yeah, you've been involved with tons of big philanthropic efforts, right? And your athletic background has always kind of served us because you've been involved with things like the Super Bowl, flag football event. I remember my son called me. He's going to GCU down in Phoenix, and I was down there. Of course, we were down in the Super Bowl together last year. And my son's like, "Hey, Mike's over here playing on the." I was like, "Yeah." Like, yeah, who's over there? Tracy McGrady, and my son's all excited about it. And they were playing over at the soccer complex, right? That big, is that what they did? Like, or did they play in the middle turf? It's a cool spot, right?
It was a cold out game. I mean, I'll tell you what, one of the thrills for me was coming out of that tunnel. I had only gotten on the roster of that game about a week or two before. again, an opportunity came and I grabbed it, and I didn't realize how big a game Celebrity Sweat was. It was like the 20 game. Now they've done 24, and man, being on their field, I really had a moment there because I'm on team Tracy McGrady. We're playing RG3 or Robert Griffin III, incredible. But then I'm looking across the field. There was one point in the game where it really was like, wow, I got Doug Flutie and I got Andre Reed. I'm covering Andre Reed. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I get this opportunity to. And the first series of the game, KJ Osborne played the Vikings. He's a Vikings wide receiver. He caught one over my head, 20. I mean, beautiful pass that RB3 threw. I covered him man to man. I mean, I said, if a 26-year-old guy can catch a pass over 52-year-old guys, then give it to him, but it was incredible, just the adrenaline. And I was gassed, but I'll tell you what, the adrenaline took over and I remember Rob Riggle, he wanted to start on defense, and it was like the Bella twins. And it was like, and I said, Rob, why don't you go to the sideline and entertain the troops? He's a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran. And I said, I want this opportunity. So I started the game. And that's the athletic side of me, that I want to be the spotlight. I'll be honest, pre-game, I was there throwing the ball to T-Mac and everybody just to get on the spotlight on TV because, they're filming this thing. And I wanted all that energy. Just really was so incredible. Now I couldn't feel my legs for about 3 or 4 days later when I came home. But that's the type of adrenaline. Like when I did my boxing match, I did a charity boxing endeavor. I met up with Jerry Cooney. We were at Mark Wahlberg's charity day event at end of 2019. And Jerry Cooney and I came up with this brilliant idea, not for me, I don't know, to get in the ring with Jerry to help his charity, YCS, it's Youth Consultation Services in Hoboken, New Jersey. And Jerry would put on a fight night, and Jerry would get in the ring at 60, whatever years old, and trade gloves with a guy like me, right? A Wall Street guy or whatever you want to call it. But we felt like we could market it. Jack Dempsey, call me Baby Jack, versus Cooney. And it was going to be Jerry's last time in the ring. I said, what a great thing to get a ring with your hero. And we started the training. I hadn't done boxing in 27 years. So it was a little bit of ring rust when I got in there with Jerry. Jerry showed me in training that better be at your best because he was giving me those left hooks. And Jerry, if you remember, he had a devastating left hook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're related to Jack Dempsey?
No. It was funny because Jerry put it out there, and some boxing writer, if you Google somewhere, it says the I don't know if it's the grandson or a relative Jack Dempsey. I never said that. It was Jerry's joke of a nickname. And right that they ran with that on the World Boxing News website, the relative of Jack Dempsey. Like, where did that, maybe we are related, but in Irish families, it could be a sixth cousin or something like that. So maybe we are. I see Patrick Dempsey at events and I'm like, hey, my cousin Patrick, and we joke, but ask me, how's your cousin Patrick doing? I'm like, he's not really my real cousin. If there's an inheritance, I want to find if there's a relation to him. So we'll see. But I got serious about it. But I wanted to be my best. I didn't want to go in there just slap gloves. A lot of celebrity boxing events, it's a joke. Like you get a big fat guy and just doing this. And I took it seriously. I trained with Antonio Tarver, the Magic Man. The guy was a Rocky Balboa movie, cruiserweight champion, light heavyweight champion. I mean, I really took the thing seriously. Bernard Hopkins, I got training, but then I found Irish Mickey Ward. Irish Mickey Ward I could relate to because Irish Mickey Ward was the guy, he was a journeyman fighter, right? And he got the best out of his career. He was in the biggest trilogy of all time with a guy named Arturo Gatti. And if you love boxing, you haven't seen the trilogy, especially the first fight, the 10th round with Gatti and Ward, one of the most incredible boxing things and they made a movie called The Fighter. After the movie, Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark played Mickey. So Mickey and I have been friends for many years. And as the fight got canceled, COVID happened, Jerry tore his rotator cuff. I wasn't giving up to this kind of idea. Once I invested in something, I'm going to finish the story somehow. And I went from choosing Tim Witherspoon as a replacement opponent. Tim couldn't do it. I went through 4 or 5 opponents. And then I almost had the dream scenario where I was going to do it up in Albany where I played football. My college football teammate, Tim Rankins, had a promotion called Cage Wars, Mike Tyson Fight Night. He was hosting. Tyson was going to be the commentator. I knew Mike, and I'm like, this is incredible. Mike Tyson's going to commentate on my boxing card. He's going to bring Mickey there. And everything was good until 2 weeks before when the boxing card got canceled by the New York State Boxing Commission. And it was just an MMA fight, right? So I still went up there to see Mike, and I was like, I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to hang out with Mike Tyson. But I'm up there in Schenectady, Rivers Casino, and hanging out with Tyson during the day. I got these cool pictures And I'm in my hotel room and I'm like, just done. I'm like, I'm feeling so deflated. I got no boxing opponent. I got a torn meniscus in my left knee. I know I need surgery soon. How do I finish this? Trisha Morrison, who is the widow of Tommy the Duke Morrison, Rocky, she messaged me, hey, Mike, what happened to the Cooney fight? She didn't know the backstory. I told her what happened. She goes, what about like Richie LaMontagne, Richie the Mountain? I know, like, who is Richie the Mountain? Everett, Massachusetts, lives right near Mickey Ward. I still active in the game with. And she goes, why don't you reach out to Richie? I'm like, never thought of that because I didn't know who Richie was until I looked him up. I saw 29-4, three-time cruiserweight champion. I'm like, marketable. It was in GQ magazine. He had like the Robert De Niro movie credits. This is perfect. A guy like that, we could really make something marketable.
Yeah.
For a Team Mickey Ward charity is a good idea. Do it at Mickey's gym. Mickey always promised me that. So I got to finish the story by doing this thing in 10 days. And I knew didn't have a lot to go. I was getting out of shape a little bit, but I said, I got to finish the story, get in the ring and bring my best. And we put it together. The only thing is Richie didn't get the memo that it was an exhibition, which means I didn't have enough to really go full. So that first round, I left my mouthpiece at home. So I had to buy a mouthpiece, Dick's Sporting Goods last minute, but you know that mouthpiece is not really molded in. A lesson that mouthpiece, you better get a really good mouthpiece when you're getting in the ring because the first punch of the fight, right in the mouth, and it's hanging out. And I had Dickie Eklund working my corner. So Dickie, who was in the movie Fighter, when they portrayed him at Christian Bale, he did a hell of a job because Dickie is crazy. Anybody that knows Dickie Eklund, that was the best, coolest part, having Dickie in my corner. I don't know if Dickie was rooting for me or the other guy because Dickie it was almost like he was giving the other guy more coaching than me. But we faced on Mark Wahlberg before the fight. It was incredible because Mark couldn't be there, but we had Mickey as the referee. And I went through 3 rounds, man. It was like the coolest. It was authentic. You should watch the fight and you will definitely see that all the punches were real. It's not professional wrestling, nothing scripted. And I stood Apollo Creed and Rocky in the first movie. I don't have to win by winning. By winning, it was about being a leader. Like I finished the fight on my feet, and that was incredible. I couldn't go 4 rounds honestly. At the end of the 3rd round, I was done. But I made it to 3 rounds, and my adrenaline took me through. I was gassed out by the end, but I made it through. Finished the story on my terms, like baseball. We talked yesterday about. I had this incredible opportunity to work with the Yankees over many, many years after football. And I started playing competitive baseball in my 40s, and I wore number 49 for Ron Guidry, Louisiana Lightning, incredible guy who coached me. I was one of the numbers said, I don't want to play baseball beyond 49. There's always a time and place where you can't see the ball anymore, like his vision goes. I don't want to play past. And then they had this Field of Dreams game with the Yankees and White Sox. It was postponed the 1 year, 2020 COVID. They had a 2021. Well, they timed it right before my 50th birthday. And I said, I got to take my dad. We got to have that cat. And me and my dad got down there. I didn't have a ticket to the game. I don't care about the game. It was all about getting on the field with my dad and having a catch. I don't care about the White Sox. Yeah, I do, but I wasn't there for the game. I'm there for my moment with my dad to have reenact this moment, having a catch in the field and everything. So we get down there. And it was like 100 degrees in Iowa. I didn't realize how hot Iowa is in summer.
It can get.
I'm name dropping all these guys for the Yankees, Ray Levine, and just trying to get in the thing. And they were like, your name's not on the list because Kevin Costner was coming that night to film the promo. Remember that promo he did before the game? They were filming that the day before. Now I realize why it was very exclusive to get in there. And right out of clear blue sky, like in the movie, Dwyer Brown, who played the dad, I see Dwyer. Met him one time at Cooperstown. I knew this guy, Stephen Costello, who was his agent. And I said, hey, Dwyer, Mike Dempsey. And like, how's he going to remember me? I said, Stephen Costello, your guy. I was sorry. I go, oh man, now we're like bros. Hey, Dwyer, man, good to see you. Hey, my dad being on veteran, we're trying to get in. We're supposed to be on the list. As simple as, hey, come with me. And all of a sudden now we're in there. We're in the Field of Dreams. We have the catch. And it was great. I might check the box. Now, as a guy who likes these videos and moments, the day after the Field of Dreams game, I was going to head back to Chicago to celebrate my friend Brett Raymer, Tank's Animal Planet guy, my 50th. But I was still 49 for one more day. I said, Dad, let's go back to the field. I feel like we need to do this again and just get more of that video of the cornfields. I just didn't. It was too rushed. It was like everything was so quick. The way people around. So now we go back to the field. I got to admit this. I'm saying, statute of limitations. I can say that I did. I lied. I said to the guy at the gate, as my dad, hey, my dad, he lost his Marine Corps ring. We need to find it by the bench where they filmed the movie, yeah, go right in. So we go into by the bench area. Now everybody's looking for the ring. The ring was never lost, but now it's like a whole 6 security guys looking for a ring. And I'm like, felt so bad. My dad's like, why are you doing this? I said, just hang in there, Dad. It's coming. And I asked the lady, I said, listen, can you take a video of me and my dad throwing a ball or whatever? He said, the ring's not that big a deal, sentimental, but it's not worth much. But look, they had that video. That meant a lot to my dad. She took it. It was incredible. Now we had the time. Now we got the moment on video, which is great. I said, Dad, let's just walk through the cornfields. We did that for about an hour or two. We were just hanging out, watching the field. The field, remember, was not at the actual Field of Dreams where they filmed the movie. It was like across the way. So we got
the other side. Yep.
Yeah, we got to do a whole walk and see that. And it was incredible. On the way back, there was this guy, Rocco. You can't make it up. Rocco from Philly, who was like the construction engineer, the guy who's taking down the field, right? Taking down the stuff. And he's got his whole crew. So Rocco was talking about, cheesesteaks or whatever. And all of a sudden you see a game break out. That's what Field of Dreams is all about, right? You go down to the field, you get this. It was an incredible. So I go to center field. I got my glove, checking some balls there. Incredible. At 49 years old, the last day of 49, I'm getting to. And then I said, hey, Rocco, can I get a round in the cage there? And like, just not really the cage, but on the field. Can I take some swings? And he goes, yeah, go right ahead. I had the lady videotape it. It was the 7th swing. I hit it line drive into the cornfields. I got it on video. It was the last hit of my career. I will not take another swing again. So my last hit was a home run in Field of Dreams. And I said it last
Nice.
really had was with my dad. So I close the story on my terms, and that's always about what I try to do it like. I want to leave on my terms something that I love. I love baseball. But honestly, I don't miss playing the game anymore. I know I'm too old to really have the reflexes to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. I'm smart enough risk management, right? To know that don't put me in the box with a guy throwing heat anymore. But, it was great because Ron Guidry loves that story. I guess I was number 49. I did it on the last day of 49 years old. I always think the gods, everything was meant to be. See with boxing, like the journey from Cooney in the beginning through Antonio Tarver, Tim Witherspoon, all the way through with Irish Mickey Ward. It was meant to be. So that was an ending to my story personally. So, but yeah,
it's very cool. Like when we talk about like, you kind of touched on this before, like it's really tough to go back into sport after a hiatus, right? Like after you take a break. And, you hit it on the head, I think earlier when you said, man, make a college team when you took the high school years off, which is a ton of development time, right? But you were doing other sports. So you were developing, you're cross training that like, it's a big difference. And, I think about Michael Jordan. I was in spring training in 1994 when Michael was there. And, we were the White Sox were in Sarasota. And I was with Detroit in Lakeland. And so we saw each other a lot, right? Like, so we're playing a lot. And, Michael's a great athlete, right? But like this gap of like high school now to pro ball, like, and he's like going from 18 to probably like 30 or 32 or something. Like he's not, so it's a bigger gap, right? It's a longer extent. And he missed the college, the college development, right? The really next level. So you can see the fundamentals of Michael Jordan are kind of there, but it's just too much of a gap to overcome. Like the speed of it. And maybe if you give Michael Jordan maybe 2 or 3 more years, like it might have come. Like, but he's also, and I think it's also. It also would have made a difference if it was Michael Jordan, 25 Michael Jordan, right, as opposed to 32, because the 3 years Michael would have been 35 instead of 28. I mean, at 28, he'd have been, like it was pretty impressive what he could do in a very short time. At the same time, for the people like us on the inside, you could see a massive gap. And it's the little things, right, Mike? It's the little things like in boxing that people don't really see on TV. They're going, oh, he dropped that left another inch. He's going to freaking get lights out. Like, and you don't realize like this to here to here is like, like, right. And so it's cool. Let's talk about risk management a little bit in the entrepreneurial and athletic world, right? People are out there and they're trying to figure out, man. It feels like we're in a constant flux of change. Technology has brought everything changing. For people that are out there right now, and it feels like it's going fast. How does one really get a stronghold on good risk management when they're trying to move towards something? Where should some of the key things they be thinking about in a very dynamic environment now, which I think is very different than when you and I are kids? We're pretty close to the age. I mean, things move slower, man. I mean, you could talk about it, but technology changed those things. And it's probably the one major advantage to me of the 24 to 30-year-olds now is that they have been raised in a constant flux of change, and adaptive is just standard, because don't get too comfortable with any technology because it's going to change in 2-3 years. You'll be doing something different. So for people that are out there and they're having to adjust that and work inside that, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think you nailed it with change, but I think the key term that I've always used in my professional speaking of corporate risk management is resiliency. You got to be resilient. You got to think proactively rather than reactively, right? You got to have that mindset to always think proactively, anticipate the unexpected. It's like what we try to do. We call it scenario analysis and risk management. We try to have like war game scenarios of what could go wrong. You always got to think ahead, anticipate the unexpected, and if you prepare for that, business continuity. Nobody could have expected 9/11, the World Trade Center, right? But now you do these scenarios. You think in risk management, what could happen if a building is lost? Nobody thought about that 30 plus years ago, right? But it happened. So what happened?
Yeah.
COVID, the pandemic. I mean, we never thought of a scenario like COVID to ever happen in this world. And when it happened, it was like, okay, we're all working from home. Nobody ever thought that could actually happen. So you always got to anticipate the unexpected, be resilient personally, and you build that resiliency framework in your mindset. And that's like how I did when I lost that fight. I kept going. I'm like, well, I'm not done. I'll fight myself. And, if I have to, I could have done that, but I would have been, I don't know who would have won, me versus myself, but you have to
Fight club.
Yeah. Fight club. Yeah, exactly. But that's how you always got to think. I think you got to be resilient and build that in organizationally, build resiliency, but personally you need to be a resilient person in order to be a leader and survive and be the winner circle.
I love this. So when we talk about this, when we talk about being resilient, one of the first things about risk management is know where you want to go. I mean, I see a lot of organizations and a lot of team people out there that if you want to get somewhere, get very clear about where you want to go, like what you're going for. If you're gray on it, you're like, oh, well, we kind of want to go over there. Well, over there is not specific, right? You want to go to this place, Schenectady, New York. We want to be on this date. We want to be doing this many things. We want this many fans in the audience. Like, you get very specific about what you want first. Two, what I heard Mike just say, which I think a lot of organizations are missing, is that we're setting goals and we're setting execution strategies around the intended consequence, which is great. It's exactly what we should be doing. What he's talking about, War Games, is talking about the unintended consequences, right? We're going to make choices along the way and things are not going to work out. And when they don't work out, what's the unintended consequence of that? And I think, you and I may have talked a little bit about it yesterday, because I'm in Michigan. I'm in Michigan today. I'm in Commerce Township today. And the unintended consequence, right? We love Dan Campbell. We love our Lions. And we go into the chance for the Lions to be in the Super Bowl. There's 6 minutes to go and we're going to go for it on 4th down. And you're like, oh man, this is what the Lions have done. We've done this. But that risk management goes, man, we know what the intended consequence is. Get the 1st down, get closer, a surer field goal, tie the game, or better, keep the drive alive and score a touchdown and go ahead. The unintended is we miss, give up a field goal, now we need a touchdown, or worse, they score a touchdown. Now we're 2 scores and we got no clock left, right? So we run into that risk danger of what ifs all the time. And what most people don't know, and what Mike's alluding to when he's talking war games, those scenarios are not run on Sunday during timeouts. Those war games are run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in prep of the game to talk about if we get in a scenario, what, let's D&D. Let's discuss and decide what we'll do in this scenario. We have this situation inside this yard line. Like, hey, if it's between the 45 and the 35, we may not feel that fully confident in our kicker from that distance. So we're more willing to go for it there. But if it's inside this is where we got to, take the points. And all those things are being tracked pre-game in risk management of what's about to happen, because no one's going to decide that. And it's that good, people. We don't make good decisions on a 90-second timeout. Like, this isn't the time to consider, hey, I never thought this would happen. What do you think we should do? You're probably not going to make under that kind of duress and stress. Is that what you recognize from your past, Mike?
Think about Super Bowl overtime, right? That the Chiefs knew what they want to do overtime with the who gets the ball first. The 49ers did not know, right? They didn't. They didn't prepare for, and I think that was a key decision. You don't want Mahomes, having that. So the 49ers got the ball first, but maybe it should have been the other way, right? So Patrick Mahomes the ball. I kind of knew it was going to happen. I think everybody I was sitting with at the game said, we know they're coming back. And I think that was, when I saw that, I was thinking the same thing about the analogy with Dan Campbell. I think that was just the preparation they didn't really assess. And again, it was like that kind of ended up being determinant in the game. And sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing. So I think that's really where, so that's a good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and listen, there's a lot of determinants in the game. Like, right, folks? Like, if you're out there and, I think one of the challenges of sport is we all go, man, I can't believe, Trent missed that shot in the last 3 seconds of the game. And you're like, hey, are we talking about Bill's 12 turnovers in the first half? like we got in a situation down 12 down because we made a lot of execution errors early in the game, and they all count in the 60 minutes of the game, right? Like, it all matters. And so I get a little bent on people who are like, oh, well, you made a bad decision at the end of the game. And I'm like, well, there's about 40 bad decisions, about 80 bad plays, right? So we're all adapting and overcoming. Real quick before we go, you've had such a heart for philanthropy, and I want to talk a little bit about, the group that really got you involved to give back. I mean, obviously you've had, and most people don't know this about you, Mike. You actually were a 9/11 survivor, of course, from the World Trade Center, but you were also in Las Vegas the day of the terrorist shooting, where I don't know, a terrorist, maybe domestic. This wild person decide like he's going to shoot into a crowd. And,
it was terrorism. I call that terrorism. It was domestic terrorism, like the Oklahoma City bomber, right?
100%.
But I just happened, it was like Forrest Gump. I just happened to be there. I was filming a show called Tank, the Animal Planet, with my friend Brett Raymer that weekend. I was supposed to go to Scott. Well, I did make it to Scott Baio's golf event that Monday after the shooting in LA. So it was just intended to be a weekend layover kind of thing. Stayed Mandalay Bay. My friend who I met for drinks at 9 o'clock at night, by 10 o'clock, he was trying to find a tram back to Excalibur. I didn't know where the tram was. I know go to Excalibur, no offense to Excalibur Hotel, but I couldn't find a tram for him. And we walked outside by the fountains in front of the Mandalay Bay about 10 o'clock and heard what pop was fireworks. And the next round, I believe the guy changed windows. And I think that's kind of what he did. He went from one window to the other to get a better or whatever. And that was loud. And I heard after what number of shots being fired, we didn't know where it was coming from. You hear it over your head, but you don't know where. And I heard someone say sniper, and all of a sudden we're running back to the hotel and lockdown. I mean, it was a crazy scenario. And again, I was risk managing as well, because I'm thinking, well, let me run back to the elevator to get to my room. And I got on the elevator with 3-4 people. And then we heard these deafening screams. It's like 15, 20 minutes later, because the initial reaction when this happened, I go back into the casino, is
fireworks. Fireworks, right?
Just like, fireworks. There's a sniper. There's a sniper out there. And the guy's like, yeah, okay. Like, tell me another one, pull my leg. I'm like, no, I couldn't get a reaction out of any of those. And I said that to the cops when they asked me for my report, there was like everybody, it was like about 10 minutes, everybody just gambling and Nobody was doing anything. And it was about 15, 20 minutes went by during the whole time of the shooting. Then it got real very quickly when it was almost like you see people, the SWAT teams coming in, but it was a delayed reaction. And even the elevator, by the time I got to the elevator, then I was on the elevator with these three people and I heard screams at that point, people running in from the concert, I believe, into the hotel. It's about 10 minutes later. And I'm on the elevator and I hear the doors are closing. It was like Halloween movie, right? With Michael Myers, and the door closes, then the door opens. You hear the screams. I thought the shooter was right behind there, but it was security getting us off the elevator. That was at one point where my heart just jumped. I'm like, okay, we're dead. But it was a crazy scenario, and just getting out of there was one of those. So you happen to be in either the wrong place at the wrong time, but I consider myself lucky more than unlucky because I'm here, right? So you can either take it as, what's that movie called Unbreakable with Bruce Willis? Maybe I'm like the living version of that. But I think it's not just what I did on 9/11 and in Vegas. I think my whole life I've had this, try to be like my friend Vince Papali, we call him Invincible. You try to be somebody who's going to be resilient in their life. And when one door shuts, like, you're going to find that other door to get it open again and finish. And whether it was 9/11, all these setbacks became comebacks for me, right? So I'm finished baseball on my terms. I finished boxing, football. I want to play one last game, next year in New Orleans to be on the field and have Drew Brees and Kurt Warner, these guys throwing balls to me. I want to do it on my terms. I know I had the celebrity sweat game, but it's not enough. I want one more. And I'm not saying that's going to be the poetic finish, but we got to have that in our life and have that vision, how to finish on our terms, because we're not getting any younger. So I want to be able to look back and check the box. Baseball, football. I think wrestling, I still need to finish the story of wrestling. Me and The Rock need to get in the ring because I saw him on Radio Row, by the way. I said, just because I only had 4 days in the ring in WCW 1995. So, I think next year would be the 30-year anniversary of being in the ring. I think me and The Rock may need to finish business, maybe John Cena, but we got to have someone. So I'll let you pick the opponent, but I think WrestleMania, I think we may need to see one more, or maybe not. So we'll see.
So when you talk about like those early, 9/11, you were talking about one of the other groups that were in the building, right? Was it Kelvin Fitzgerald? What is it?
Well, Kelvin Fitzgerald. Yeah. Kelvin Fitzgerald, I do a lot for the charity work. We do a celebrity charity day every year. They have a Canada Relief Fund they developed right after 9/11. Howard Lutnick and the CEO and his sister Edie developed this Canada Relief Fund, and they've given back every year to participating charities. So whether it's Michael Jordan, you mentioned, or whoever the celebrity is, they represent their own foundation. All the proceeds, the commissions that day, they usually about $12 million a year they have from the broker commissions. They donate them to other charities. So on 9/11, it's a day of giving. And Canada Fitzgerald had the most loss, the measurable loss, 730 something employees that were killed.
Wow.
They give back every year. This past year we had Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, all these, Matthew McConaughey, and we do an incredible event every year when the charities benefit and they just get paid it forward. So it's an inspiring story, and Canada Fitzgerald has really embodied rebuilding from the ground. I mean, they lost everything. They lost all their employees. London had to take over their London operations. I mean, it's an incredible story called, I think it's called The Unbreakable Bond documentary. Check it out. It's really tells the story of Canada Fitzgerald's story from really like losing everything. And a lot of firms banded together to help them out through it. And now they're doing better than ever. So they inspired me to be, and all the philanthropy I do is really, and you said helpers, you got to find your helpers like Oklahoma City. When I was at 9/11, when I got out of the hospital, I went to the Pier 39, I think it was called. There was a pier where they had all the 9/11 resources. I met these people from Oklahoma City that were from the bombing from 1995, which I barely remembered about. And they were there to help give us a hug. They weren't like therapists. They were just there to give support, emotional support, give a hug, tell, hey, we were there 6 years earlier. And we started this 9/11 program in my foundation that Anthony Gardner, we formed this thing called the World Trade Center United Family Group. And we developed a peer support program. We brought 9/11 families to Oklahoma City during their bombing commemoration on April 19th. We had 3 days of activities, peer support, and they would come up Oklahoma to New York on our 9/11 anniversary. We did it for about almost 20 years. And then COVID kind of stopped. So we haven't done it in 3-4 years, but it was an incredible program that, was not one size fits all when it comes to therapy, but fact is, these weren't people that were mental health professionals. They were just people that had been through a traumatic experience. And I did one for Parkland. We brought all the bombings, all the survivors from different tragedies, Boston Marathon, from 9/11, Vegas, you name it, down Aurora from the Colorado, from that shooting, all the way to Parkland to help out the survivors as well. And the family members, Freddie Kudenberg, who lost his daughter, Jamie, in Parkland on February 14th in 2018, and also the survivors that went through this traumatic experience and their lives were never the same again. We had this peer support group just telling our stories like I'm doing today, and it helped a lot of people. I'm proud of that. That's probably one of the most proudest things I've done is bring all those people together and pay it forward. We always said that I got help from Oklahoma City to help me, but I want to pay it forward to help out the next generation of people who were, fortunately, shootings happen every day now. And it's like the population has exploded. We were very sort of, could be about 10, 20 years ago. Now it's almost like everybody's impacted by mass violence, and that's what's scary in this country. But we need to empower people by telling our stories, as we're the ones who are telling the story. And 9/11, a lot of our programs around telling the history of 9/11, we created authentic firsthand accounts that are in the museum and in programs, curriculum. So we call ourselves the 9/11 Education Trust, and we develop 9/11 curriculum materials for kids all around the country. And my
so cool.
Sparta has developed that. So I'm proud of that because there's a legacy that generations to come, So,
yeah. Let's talk about the last two things. One is, the incredible. I mean, if you have not gone to the 9/11 Memorial in New York, I highly recommend it. It is emotional. It is unbelievable. As a person who just kind of like when Kennedy was shot, everyone knows where they were at on 9/11, right? Like it's one of those things in our lifetime, people are going to go like, hey, where were you on the morning of 9/11? And I'll never forget it, right? I owned 1-800-GOT-JUNK in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was, those very early in the morning there. I had a 6:30 a.m. breakfast or maybe a 6:30 a.m. because we were 2 hours difference. And so it was 8:30 in the morning and, one of the TVs kind of flashed on this situation. So, it's an interesting thing. I knew more what was going on in Phoenix, Arizona, at this little cafe than you did sitting, 100 yards from impact, right? Like, because people, all of a sudden you lose communication, you lose all these things. And we've got television coverage and we've got all sorts of stuff, right?
Not TVs at all. They were at the old school building.
Yep. So you go like, man, it's weird how that works, as you talked about. So the two things I want to talk about, your whole life, it's setback to comeback. Here's a setback. And, this is one of the things that athletes do incredibly well. There's many stories of professional athletes that had a setback. And the reason that they come back so strong is that if you've been training for 6-7 years of your life, and often, by the time you're in the pros, you've got 10, 12, you're so good that you've always played on all-star teams. You get picked up for extra work and extra play. And then this is the first time, like, you tear a meniscus and an ACL. And hey, this is the first time I haven't done activity for 6 months of my life. And so what can I do? And you're like, hey, I can bring you in, Mike, and we can put 15 pounds on your upper body while we're rehabilitating your lower half. And we can study, and you start studying like all the little details of your position, because you can study film, you can look at this, you can look at that. And all these things that you probably take for granted when you're physically totally healthy, all of a sudden you've got to look at everything. In baseball, the pitchers who got hurt, they would take a step back and look so detailed at their mechanics. And a lot of times, an upper body injury, and then I would take them as a strength coach and put 15, 20 pounds on their lower half.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they come out of rehabilitation throwing 4 to 5 miles an hour harder, because they've increased their mechanics and they've increased their lower half strength. And now it's so important to get all those things working in synergy. And they don't want to risk being out of synergy for a second, because it's a recipe for another injury. And they come back as such a better player because of this setback. So these comebacks happen. And I want to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about a word you used before to me, which is survivor guilt. Walk us through quickly, just how, what do you mean by survivor guilt, and what did you do about it?
Well, Cantor Fitzgerald, I had accepted an offer with Cantor right before 9/11. Didn't take it, accepted it, made all the sense of the world. Whatever happened, I stayed with Credit Suisse first, had a great boss, and a lot of stories behind why I stayed at Credit Suisse, but Cantor was a better offer. And I turned it down. And I remember the first thing I thought of when the World Trade Center, I was in the hospital, the first thing I thought of is, oh my God, all the people I knew there died. And actually,
And if you'd have taken the job, you'd have died.
right. Well, a lady that I was going to work for, Virginia DiChiara, and you can look up her story. Virginia actually survived, but she was burned on 60% of her body. She was at St. Barnabas for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. She's had like 60 skin grafts. I mean, Virginia, well, her story is incredible. I could tell you for half an hour that story, but she was the boss. She survived, and it inspired me that she survived and made it through that. But a lot of people did not. So I had this incredible guilt about. And so, the first group I was part of was a bereavement group. Believe it or not, I was a survivor. They contacted me. I just got out of the hospital, and they knew I was calling about some of their employees, and they had this group in Lido Beach, Long Island. And I go there, it's all widows. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I feel out of place. I'm with widows. I'm a survivor. And the first thing they were telling me, that some of the widows were like, you survived. Why are you here? It was an awkward first meeting. But you know what? We became a close-knit group. But by the second, third meeting, they want to know, hey, what'd you see that day? What was the traits? And we became like best chummy. And I made a lot of I have a friend, Felice Zaslow, Zaslow, who just wrote a book about her experience. And it's incredible. It's out there. If you look on Amazon, I'm in the book too. It just tells that story about her husband, Ira, who was lost. He was Lehman Brothers. He just happened to be getting coffee. He was on the 25th floor, I believe. It was on the, so he was one of the guys in the elevator when the building. So one of those like wrong place at the wrong time. But that's how I got started in sort of the therapy. And then I found the Oklahoma City folks as well. And it took me on my journey, but yeah, what a journey it's been. But that's about to give back. And I felt like I had to do something to help others,
Well, you've done a lot of good for a lot of people, Mike. I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. And it's fun that you've wrapped that around sport, around athletics, around our veterans who love sports and love athletics. And man, it's probably the one thing I love about sport. Nothing else brings people together, right? I mean, it's, we talk about soccer and football, and, I get a kick out of people going, oh yeah, Super Bowl, it's so fun. And then you realize like, hey, there's, a few, almost 100 million who are going to watch the Super Bowl. And then you've got hundreds of millions that are going to watch the Premier League championship. It's like crazy. Like sport just brings people to a whole other thing. And
we're bringing together two movies with Field of Dreams. I lived that Field of Dreams scenario.
Yeah.
And I think Vision Quest, when I was a kid, that movie, Aladdin Swain. And so when I was training for the boxing, I mean, I was COVID. We couldn't go to the gyms. Remember, like you're all I did Aladdin Swain. I was doing that jump rope. I was doing it outside in my backyard. I was doing.
Did you have the rubber suit on? Did you put the rubber suit on? Did you put the rubber
suit? But I know Frank Jasper played Brian Shoot. I'm going to see him in Wyoming. I'm doing a keynote in August, and I can't wait to meet. But Shoot, he was the guy that maybe I'll wrestle Shoot. Maybe that'd be my WrestleMania opponent. But I'll tell you what, great. It was an awesome movie, but I love how it's a vision quest. And I said, all these things I do is my vision quest. Playing and playing football is my vision quest. I was going to achieve it somehow, some way. I was going to find a way. And like I said, this year I got shut out of the Celebrity Sweat Flag football game, as this year, because I got the Jersey Shore. They wanted to be in the game, and Paulie D and Snooki and all that. And I got have enough influencers or have enough on my Instagram to get into the game, but I'm going to play next year in New Orleans and do it and go out my way. And I'm going to find a way. So my vision quest is get back in the gym and get in shape. And I'm going to hopefully, the story where I lit up Frankie Munoz from Malcolm in the Middle 2 years ago.
Yeah. You can look that one up on Amazon too, where you might have had 100 pounds on Frankie, didn't you? Like,
I did, but he did a spin move on me. And I think that doing a spin move on me and trying to show me up, I showed him a little bit of what football really feels like. So he's an expert for race car driving. He's a race car driver. So, I got him a little bit, threw him down, ripped his pants. I don't know, his pants ripped, but you never know. But I want to go out next year, have one last moment on the field, whatever that moment's going to be. But that's my vision quest, right? And
there you go. Hey, look for Mike Dempsey's vision quest coming to you. It'll be New Orleans next year. It'll be Brian Shoot inside the ring. Maybe The Rock officiating. I don't think he's getting back in there too much. He's got a lot to lose. But Listen, for everybody out there, always great to have people, as you know, winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Winners find a way. Always thrilled to have my good friend Mike Dempsey on here. For everybody out there, thank you for joining us. Winners find a way every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. And you will see that on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and our Leadershipity YouTube channel. Mike, thanks so much. Any parting words for people out there today if they going through some things? Piece of advice?
Want to give one last shout out to a guy named Kevin Guidry. He was a football player for the Commanders, and Kevin has a gym called Find a Way Fitness, and it's around the corner from me. And
Yeah.
Played for flag football, and Kevin, I adopted this Find a Way, and I'll tell you what, for 2 months I was in that gym preparing for Super Bowl, and I found a way to get either that workout in at 8:30, 9:30, or 4:30 or 5:30. But his mission is always about find a way. There's no excuses. You cannot make excuses. Never miss a Monday. And I guess shout out to that whole Find a Way Fitness crew, because you know what, they inspired me about, hey, you got to beat out of 53 this year, but I'll always find a way to be at my best. So that's
Love it. I love it. Kevin, good name of that gym. I love it, man. Like, that's awesome. All right, for everybody else, we'll see you next time on The Winners Find a Way.
Organizations come to me all the time with challenges of execution and communication with their teams. We help build a system through Bloom Growth and software that gives them simplification and prioritization. I teach, facilitate, and coach these organizations to literally double their value. If you're interested in gaining your individual and organizational growth, please email me at trent@leadershipity.com or click the link below and book a 15-minute call on my Calendly.